So not only am words, which is one that I am going to stop talking. It's never aimed in that direction, just... Why would I aim it in that direction? Yeah, but I never leave it open to the... Oh, well, that's fair. Okay, fine. And there is a glossary in the back that... There's a glossary in the black. That's what just almost came out of my face. Good fun.
Oh, I thought you went back, corrected yourself, and still screwed it up.
No. That was me making fun of myself for almost saying the wrong thing. And it's just very interesting, really. And I don't know where I was going with this, so let me collect my thoughts. Hi everybody, my name is Kelsey, and we're about to get very, very nerdy with a brand new vlog series. So I've been toying with the idea for quite a while. It's actually partially inspired by Jade from Jade Reads vlog series that she's got, which is like Read It Like, and she picks a specific booktuber, reads their favorites. And I liked that idea a whole lot, but I didn't want to, read books I wasn't gonna like, or like I knew going into it I wasn't going to like. So I was inspired by that video, as well as my recent video I think I put up a couple of months ago, which is like BookTube Made Me, which is books that I have bought because of BookTube. And I thought, let's combine them. This series basically is going to be me picking a specific booktuber and reading 3 to 4 books that I am interested in because of them. Or it's a book that I have heard on their channel first, or it's a book that something they said made me want to read it. And it's books that I'm interested in because of that person. So, the first person that we are going to be doing is Ashleigh from A Frolic Through Fiction. Actually, I am very excited because she and I have a lot of similar tastes in the books that we're interested in, and I've picked up quite a few that I'm interested in because of her. This also felt like a good time to do it because she thrives in the fall. So I'm going to try to make this video as similar to her style as I can. So it's going to be super cozy, snuggle down, get a hot drink. We're going to be here for quite a little bit. So not only am I going to be reading some of their favorite books, but I'm also going to try to kind of live like them a little bit. I mean, in the sense of like for example, with Ashleigh, she's very into she loves fall, she loves earthy tones, so I'm going to be working from home for the next few days, and I think this will be like a really good way to do this, hopefully over the next week and a half by the time you see this. But I am going to drink all of the tea, wear all of the cozy things, maybe we'll go on a walk. I don't really have a place to go on a walk to, but like just some things that you would normally see on her channel. I'm going to try to just do all of the cozy vibes as much as I can in this video. So I hope that you guys enjoy this. I will leave the books that I'm going to be talking about, which I'll tell you in a second, chaptered down below if there's a specific book that you want to learn more about or you want to look into. I'll leave them chaptered down below if you're curious. But I do have 4 books, so let's get into those. So I have a couple of these on audio. I've got the ability to have all 4 on audio, but I do have 2 on audio, and I've got a couple others on my ebook, so I've got ways to read them. So the first one I'm going to be getting to, there's no order, I'm not sure which one I'm going to start with. We'll decide that tomorrow. But the first one I'm going to tell you about is The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson. This is the stunning UK cover that I bought. Actually, in that video I did a couple of months ago of come online book shopping with me. Should check that out. But this is purely because of her. I really like Celtic mythology, and she mentioned that this has to do, well, I just like mythology, let's just be fair. And she said this had to do with, I believe she said Celtic mythology, which is not one that I know a whole lot about, and she raves about this and says that not many people know about it or have read it, and it's one of her favorites, I think. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm getting into. So basically what I can gather from both Goodreads and the back of this is that it follows our main character Wren, who is part of this very warped childhood game where she's chased through the woods every winter. But she is chased by her family's enemy, but I don't think that they know that she is their enemy. But then she is sent undercover to one of their foundations, like their enemy headquarters, to learn some sort of magic. I don't know, it sounds good. This cover is just utterly stunning, and I'm really excited to dive into it. So we're gonna pick up that one, and then we're also gonna pick up Heart of the Fae by Emma Hamm. This is a Fae Beauty and the Beast retelling, and I looked it up on Goodreads earlier just to remind myself what these were about, because it's been a little bit since I decided like which ones I picked. And so this is actually a Beauty and the Beast retelling. Also, it's Irish mythology, and everything about that sounds amazing. Like, you guys know I love everything and anything set in Scotland or Ireland, and if it has mythology attached to it, that is a buzzword for me. I cannot be more excited about this. So this is part of, I think, a companion series. I looked it up, and it looks like the second book in this actually deals with the same characters, but the third one doesn't? I'm not entirely sure, but it sounds fun, and I love me some good retellings. Basically everything about the synopsis sounded good. Like, you've got retellings, you've got mythology, you've got Irish, like, I'm good to go. So I think I'm gonna pick this one up first, actually, because I'm very interested in this one. So I do have this one on my Kindle, so we're gonna pick that up sometime. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow. We'll see. And then the next one is actually Master of Sorrows, which is by Justin Travis Call. I do actually have the audiobook of this. It came with my Audible subscription, actually. So I'm very excited about this. And I'm not going to lie, the synopsis kind of confuses me, but what I've gathered from it is it's kind of a villain origin story, almost, where we're following this character who is kind of being told one thing by a tutor, but also a different thing by, like, the people who raised him, I think, and one person is telling him to be good, and one person is telling him not to be good, and so it's kind of this, like, conflict, but I believe it takes place in a magic school or some sort of scholar academic setting, where he's trying to learn about the magic he has. I'm not entirely sure. Like I said, the back is a little confusing, so once I get into this one, I'll be able, I think, to explain it a little bit better, but that's kind of what I've gathered from it, and it sounds amazing. Just like the villain origin story idea sounds really fascinating, and I think it'll be a very, I like the magic scholarly aspect of it, so I'm very curious where this is gonna go. And then it wouldn't be a true video about Ashleigh if I didn't include the Bone season. Oh my, that's reflective, because I got it from the library. So this is the first in a very long series by Samantha Shannon. I believe the fourth one just came out, and I think there's at least 3 more planned, maybe. I have been putting off reading this because of how long the series is. And I just, like, that idea stresses me out, especially when it's a long series that's unfinished. However, Ashleigh put out this video months ago where it was like 50 reasons why you should pick up the Bone season. I don't remember what it was, but there was a couple of things that she said in there that really grabbed my attention. So I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pick it up and I'm gonna read it. So this follows our main character, Paige, who is a clairvoyant in a world where clairvoyancy is illegal. And I believe she gets caught doing it one day and then is taken away. And she's thought she's going to be taken to this, like, place, maybe to be executed, maybe to be locked away, and then she's apparently taken somewhere different. And that is anything, that's all anyone will say about this book. So, I'm not entirely sure what we're getting into, but it felt only appropriate, because in my head, I'm going to give the first one a chance, and then if I like it, great, we can continue. I now know that this is a series I'm going to want to continue with and finish. If I don't, it's fine, I gave it a shot. So that's kind of, this is going to let me know if I'm actually interested in the rest of the series. It's kind of where we're at. So, I only technically have 2 here, but I do have the plans for those 4. So, that's the plan for this video. I hope you enjoy. Let's see what happens. I am very excited about this. I'm very, very excited. this lighting is not at all good. But hello, I am here. So it's Wednesday night, and I came on here because I have finished Heart of the Fae, which I am so mad about in a good way. Okay, so like it got 4.5 stars from me because I did have a couple of issues with it. A little bit of the writing was weird, but it is a part 1 to a 2-part story. And like this is a very long series, and there's a bunch of like standalones within the series, but for some reason the first 2 books are basically the same story split in half, and not in like a normal duology way where there is some sort of a wrap up. No, there was a cliffhanger, and like I knew it was coming, so I did go on to the Goodreads to kind of see what other people had. Honestly, I was trying to find Ashleigh's rating of it, and she gave it a 4.5 to 5 star. And then I saw someone else mention that there was a really big cliffhanger on this one, so I was kind of expecting it, but you know, we were getting close, and I was like 98% of the way done with this book, and we were not even close to solving any of the issues. So I was very bitter. So I need to like pick up the second one soon. Cause I need answers. But otherwise I really loved this book. It was right up my alley. It had all of the Celticness, Irishness of it that I loved. It was about Fae, which I loved. The magic system was very fascinating to me. They have this whole thing where names are powerful, so like if you know a Fae's name, then you can command them. And so it's very, you know, not many people will give out their names, and so for like most of this book, our beast character does not give his name to our main female lead, whose name is Sorka. And so one of the kind of the biggest thing that was why I gave it 4.5 and not 5 stars is because it is written in third person, but when we're in kind of Sorka's head, she switches back and forth from calling him this nickname that she's given him and then using his actual name, and so like she wouldn't know his actual name. And it just kind of switches back and forth, and while yes, you're in third person, you're still kind of in her head, so that was very jarring at times. And so I don't know if that was like a choice that the author decided to do, or if that was kind of a mistake, or just like, I don't know, if that just wasn't caught in editing or something, because it happened multiple times in the same sentence where she would call him both names. And it was very confusing because I wasn't really sure what was going on. But the magic system was really interesting, and just kind of learning more about her because she is a healer. Maybe I should tell you a little bit more about what the plot is besides telling you that it's just a Beauty and the Beast retelling. So this book follows Sorka, who lives in this little town. Actually, she lives in a brothel, but she is not. She's a healer, she's not. Actually, she's technically a midwife, but she wants to be a healer, but she lives with basically all of these prostitutes who like treat her very well, and the guy who's in charge of it treats her very well. But during this time, there is what's called the blood beetle plague, which is kind of gross, to be honest. So if you're kind of squeamish when it comes to some mild body horror things, which I am not a huge body horror person, so those parts definitely kind of freaked me out a little bit. It's not talked about a whole lot. It's actually only briefly mentioned in the beginning and the end. But she basically has been taught by her mom, who's no longer alive, but her mom basically taught her all of the ways of the Fae, and it's basically just like bringing offerings to shrines for specific Fae, not particularly asking them for anything in particular, just kind of sharing your love, I guess, for them. And when she goes to do this one day, a Fae actually like answers her, and sends her on this quest to find what she thinks is going to be the solution for this blood beetle plague. And so that just kind of sends her off on this whole adventure, and then we've got the Beast character, who is very physically altered, I guess is the best way to phrase it, whereas wherever he's been cut, gems kind of come out of his skin instead of blood, and like, but it's a permanent scar, so like he has gemstones all over him from like, if he punches a wall, he won't bleed, but there's a new gemstone like that will erupt on his knuckle or something like that. And it was really interesting looking at these worlds between like there's this whole conflict between Seelie and Unseelie Fae, and he's been sent to this island, basically, to be banished because he's looks a little different. And so she eventually gets on this island, and they eventually meet, and I love them so much. Their conversations just made my heart so happy. So I was so there for their relationship. It was chef's kiss. I loved it. And I'm not sure if this is YA or new adult or adult, but it's definitely on one of those. There's definitely some more adult scenes in this, but I need the second one right now. And the sad part is I have it. The second one's on Kindle Unlimited. Actually, all of her books in this series are on Kindle Unlimited, so I could pick it up if I really, really, really wanted to, which I do. But I need to finish the rest of the books for this vlog before I do that. But, oh my gosh, I want to know. But I also really loved how this book was written, minus like some of the issues that I had mentioned before. Her actual writing style is very imaginative in a way that like you can really picture everything that's going on. I found it different than most things I've read recently, so I could see her being a favorite author really quickly. I'd have to obviously read some more. I know she's got a couple other series beyond just this one, which is all, but minus the first two, they're all standalones set in the same world. But I really enjoyed it, and I loved watching our characters. Like, to me, Sorka is one of my favorite characters I've ever read about, because it's such a beautiful blend of like a super strong, courageous, I'm not gonna wait for no man kind of female, but then you've also got this very soft, nurturing side because she's a midwife, because she wants to become a healer. You kind of have to have that kind of bedside manner almost to be that. And so this blend of strong and soft, it's just so nice to like read about. It felt very realistic. It felt very natural to have both of these sides of the same person meld together. It was written in a way that made sense to me. And it didn't feel like, oh, she's now this side, now she's this side. It blended really well together. So I really enjoyed this book. I'm so happy I read it. This was a great first one to start for this vlog, and oh my goodness, did I freaking love this book. So now this means I gotta pick another one. And I'm really conflicted because part of me wants to read The Wren Hunt, but I feel like that one is somewhat similar, maybe, in vibe I get. So I think I'm actually going to pick up Master of Sorrows, which is the one that I knew the least about as far as being able to explain it to you. So I'm going to go sit down and find that, because I do have the audiobook, but I think the ebook is on Hoopla, or my library's Hoopla. So I'm gonna go plop down and read some of that before bed tonight, and then maybe I'll come back to you tomorrow morning and be able to tell you more about what this book is about, because go look it up. I literally have no idea how to explain it to you. It's a villain origin story is kind of how it's been marketed. Marketed is not the right word, but kind of marketed towards me, or kind of what I've heard about it. So I think that's what I'm going to go with. And I'm excited and nervous because I'm not entirely sure what I'm getting into. But I'm very, very intrigued. Hello. It's been about a day, I think, since I talked to you last. I mean, you would have seen me immediately before this clip. But basically I didn't really do a whole lot in the last day or so. But I've made it. Let me grab my book real quick. I'm reading it on my husband's iPad. I've made it about 124 pages according to this out of 540, I think. So I'm on chapter 17. I think I'm like 25-ish% of the way through the book. But I've made it enough to where things are starting to make sense. So this story, I'm here to tell you kind of a little bit about what it's about, because I couldn't tell you a daggum thing the last time I talked to you. So this story gives me the vibes of like classic high fantasy, like Lord of the Rings and things like that, but it's written differently so that it's not that classic fantasy writing style as much. So I am actually really intrigued with some of the stuff that's going on, but it kind of comes and goes. It's like when I'm reading, I'm interested, I'm there, I'm invested, I want to keep reading, and then when I'm not reading, I have zero desire to pick it up. So it's a very strange experience. But basically, this story follows this boy named Anev, I think is how you say it. Let me pull up his name real quick because I have completely forgotten. Anev, yeah. And so there's a prologue that kind of gives you a little bit of a backstory, but basically this follows this guy, and it's in this world where there is magic, but the kind of village he lives in is very wary of magic, so they create, or they train you in this kind of magic school to be avatars. And avatars are people who go out in the world and collect these magical objects, they're basically wands, and bring them back to the magic school to be kind of kept hidden, kept away. I mean, everyone knows that this magic school has these artifacts, but like they're so worried that they're going to be used for evil that they kind of hoard them. And so you take a test to become an avatar, and if you don't become an avatar, you become a steward. And a steward is basically someone who can't go out on missions, they can't leave the little village, they can't get married, they're basically like a servant. But you have to pass this test, and everyone is kind of trained the same way, so you're trained to be an avatar until your last test, and I don't know what determines whether it's a last test, maybe how old you are, and then if you don't pass this last test, then you're kind of out of luck. And so Anev is kind of been grown, he lives with the village priest, I think is, I don't actually know his official title, but he's like a holy man, and he's kind of teaching him magic along the side. So Anev has some sort of magic in him, and so he's kind of conflicted between this very anti-magic almost view that he has if he wants to become an avatar, and then this view that the kind of priest that's kind of teaching him a little bit has. There's also a lot of like backwards thinking in this world as well, because like anybody with a deformity of any sort is considered really like low and not good, because they think this like evil god has cursed them and that's why they have a deformity. And I think on Goodreads it says that Anev has one, and it's really fascinating, tough to understand. I think magic system, once you finally get into it, I don't know if the actual physical book would have a kind of glossary or something like that, but the ebook I have doesn't, and I think it would benefit from that just so that you can understand some of the terms, especially at the beginning. They kind of give you some passages between the prologue and the first chapter of like this holy book on like I think these 3 gods. And so there are 2 good ones and 1 not so great one, and they're all siblings, and so they give you a little bit of backstory about them. But yeah, that's kind of really where I am. It's been a lot of fighting, actually, because they're training for the test that is currently where I am. It's the next day. Actually, I'm on chapter 17, and this entire 70 chapters have taken place in one day. And I think there's like 75 chapters in this book, so it's like, they're tiny chapters. They're training, kind of their last training for the last test. They're at their last test. And the weird thing about this is that only one person can pass each year and then become an avatar. However, if you become an avatar, you can still participate in this test. So multiple times, like there's this avatar that's basically like the bully, and he's completed and passed this test like 5 times. And so it's last test, and Anav and his like 3 friends have all not passed, and so he's determined to pass because he has a female in the village that he is hardcore crushing on. And if he can't pass, then they can't like get married and become a thing. Yeah, I am enjoying it, but I'm not at all sure kind of what I think yet. I'm not a huge high fantasy reader, which is why I wanted to start this one relatively soon in this, because this was the one that I'm the most worried about out of these 4, even though I'm very interested. Like, the plot is very fascinating to me, and I like the writing in a sense. Like, it's very straightforward. There's not a whole lot of florally kind of things, and not a lot of descriptions. It's very like, this is what's happening, and this is what's happening. And like I said, I've had like 5 fight scenes already. So we'll see. I'm not sure about this one yet, but like it is keeping me intrigued. I'm very interested because we know that Anev has this sort of something. but we don't know what it is. And I don't know if they've mentioned it at the beginning of the book and I just completely missed it, which is entirely possible because in the first few chapters I had no idea what was going on. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at. I wanted to give you a better synopsis now that I've read a little bit into it. So this is going to be my primary goal for the next few days, I think. This audiobook is long, by the way. Like, this is not a small book, so I wanted to get the big book kind of out of the way. So yeah, that's my plan. I'm just gonna keep reading, and I'll let you know probably when I finish it. I feel like I can plow through this in the next couple of days or so. So that's my plan. Let's not spill the coffee. Hello. I'm here because I have some updates for you. So, since we talked last, I have finished, finally, Master of Sorrows. Sorrows? Is that right? And I've started the Wren Hunt. So, this one, I ended up giving 3.5 stars to, because, I don't know, I just kind of feel like, don't really feel anything for it, to be honest. Because I think I told you when I updated you last that, like, while I was reading, I was interested and intrigued, and then when I wasn't, I had no desire to pick it up, and that continued, so I was kind of forcing myself to actually physically pick it up, otherwise it was going to take me way too long to actually finish it. But it just, I don't know, like, there's just something about it that was disconnected for me, and I don't know if it was because of the writing or because he spent so much time on specific things. Like I think I told you the last time I talked to you, I was on chapter 17 and it was all taking place in one day and it was just him at the school and it was very boring. I don't know what my hair is doing. It's driving me nuts. It was just kind of boring. It was just him going from class to class, and like I understood that you needed that because it set up the world and it set up the characters and who was going to be important and who wasn't. But like I swear this book took place in like a week. No, it took place in 3 days. This 500 something page book took place in 3 days, and they spent so much time on specific things. And while yes, the chapters were super short, it was like he had to go into the woods for this trial about halfway through the book, and I swear 15 chapters were how long it took for him to go into the woods and figure stuff out. I don't know. I feel like if you're someone who likes super high fantasy, Lord of the Rings, like that kind of, maybe not quest story, but just that like high fantasy kind of feel to it, then you'd really like this. That's just not really something that I've ever really jived with 100%, and it kind of showed, because there's nothing wrong with the writing as far as like it being really old. Like, I don't like the way Lord of the Rings is written. I think it's really boring, personally, but it didn't have anything like that made me dislike it. It was very easy to digest kind of what was happening, but you are thrown into this world that's kind of confusing, and it takes about halfway through the book to really get a grasp of what's going on. So like you get the bare minimum in the first few chapters or so, but then after that it doesn't really kick in until about, I think, halfway through. And so like then there were interesting things that were happening, but there was just a lot of fighting. And I don't care about fighting. I really don't. Though I do appreciate it wasn't like ridiculously gory and graphic fighting. So like if the fighting was happening, he was very abrupt and saying like, well, then this person cut off this person's hand and then this person did this thing. And so like it wasn't like descriptive and graphic in that sense. It was very like methodical, maybe is the word I'm looking for, where it was just kind of like, this is what's happening and then this happens, which I appreciated because I don't like descriptive gory grossness. Y'all know this. So it was just kind of okay, you know? So I am happy I gave it a try. It's going to be, I think, a pretty long series. I checked on Goodreads, and I know the second one is out, which honestly, not really itching to pick up. And there's at least 2 more planned, so it's gonna be a series. But it was really interesting because when we got to the end, I was starting to see sort of the like villain origin stories and kind of how this could be twisted into making him the bad guy. So we'll see. Glad I read it. Still gave it 3.5 stars because there were definitely some interesting things that happened, especially in the epilogue. Like there's a character that's like kind of put on a path in the epilogue that you wouldn't think would be put on that path based on everything that happened in the book. If you've read it, you know what I mean. So it was, there are things that were fascinating to me and things that I was very interested in, and the world as a whole is very interesting. The magic system definitely took a lot of thinking because it's very similar to the Lord of the Rings in the fact that I'm pretty sure there is a different language when you're using like spells and stuff, and I'm not sure if it's based on Latin or, because I don't know Latin, or if it's just completely made up. But it took a lot of thinking to kind of create this world. So I do give it props for that. Is it my favorite thing I've ever read? No. So happy that's kind of over, not gonna lie. So I can move on to some things that I might like a little bit more. So like I mentioned, I did start The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson. I'm about a third or so, maybe a little farther than that, into the book. I'm about 150-ish pages into this book. I think it's only about 400. So I'm really enjoying it. I wasn't sure what was going on in this when I first started the book. There is like a 2-page glossary in the back of this that kind of explains the terminology, which I really appreciated, and I feel like it's definitely important to have because they don't go into grave detail about these things. Like basically there's 2 types of people. There are, I don't remember what they're actually called though. They're augurs and they are judges, and they're basically 2 types of druid people who are at odds. And our main character, Wren, is an augur. She is undercover at this organization that is a major judge organization, and she's finding some stuff out to bring back to her family and to kind of like her people. But like obviously none of the judges know that she's an augur. And so it's really interesting. And so at first I was like, what the heck is going on? Because it's written very contemporarily, so it's very like bizarre to see these random fantastical type things happen. And like there's not really, as far as I can tell, there's not a whole lot of like magic and like big things like that, but there's like some, like each augur has like a power, but they're very muted because of where they live, and the judges are kind of taking over, and like if they take over the lands that are like really important to them, then their power is dwindled, so they're kind of dying out. It's just really like the magic system is kind of fascinating because it's a very, very light magic system, and it's very, like I said, very contemporarily written because it's set in modern day. So it's fascinating, but it is set in like Ireland, which makes me very happy. But yeah, I was just kind of like trudging along. I was like, this is okay. Like I just need to get into it, kind of see what was going on. And then in the last like couple of chapters, I have become very interested in what is going on, because at this organization that she is undercover, she, there's a guy that is catching her eye. And then there's also this guy that's the bane of her existence, and he thinks there's more to her, and she is not quite sure what his motives are. And so there's this kind of fighting situation between the two of them, and it's very tense. So it's just kind of got ramped up in the last couple of chapters, but really now I kind of understand where we're going with this book, and I'm very interested in this. So I have this audiobook on Audible, and based on the speed that I'm reading at, I might bump it up. I haven't decided. I had to slow it down for Master of Sorrows, but I can bump it up for this one, I think. Anyway, it says I've got like maybe 3.5 hours at most in this book, and I am very happy about that because I want to get this video done by Thursday because the in-laws are coming this week, and I would like to have this finished so that I can spend time with them. So my goal is to finish this today and start the bone season, and then finish the bone season and the next day or so, which I think will be an option because I have lots of cleaning to do. So audiobooks are going to be great for that, but you didn't need to know any of that information except for that I'm very much enjoying this one as of right now. I'm excited to see where it could go. It felt interesting because like I said, I'm a third through it, and it felt like not a lot had happened yet to be that far into the book, and now things are starting to pick up, and I'm like, okay, I want to know where this goes. So I'm very intrigued by this. I'm also intrigued because there is a sequel to this one, which is called The Wicker Light, and I do know that that is out. So I'm wondering if that's like a companion sequel, or if it's actually like a sequel, and we're not going to get all the answers in this one, because it is pretty like quick to get through, but I don't know. So I'm gonna keep powering through this, and I'll let you know what I think. So far, so good though. I am here to update you because I have finished a book and started the last one, and I have thoughts. So last night, I finished The Wren Hunt by Mary Watson, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I was very unsure going into this until, like, I think I told you the last time I talked to you. I was about a third of the way through, and then things started to pick up and get interesting, and it was a non-stop adventure from there. So it was really good. I loved the very light touches of fantasy elements in this. I would say this is a good book for people who really like contemporary and want to get into fantasy, because it's set in a modern day. There's a lot of modern kind of, not necessarily pulp culture references, but little things like, for example, at one point our main character had a flashlight on her keychain and it was of Wonder Woman. So it's like little things like that that aren't like big parts of the plot, but it kind of reminds you that it is present day. And it was set in Ireland, and it's in a small town, and it was just fun. And I loved learning about the magic system in this. Now, this is a standalone in the sense of there is a sequel, but it's more of a companion sequel. It's more of like a thriller. It's set in the same world, it's set in the same magic system, it's set in the same town, but it's a totally different story. So if you want like a one and done kind of fantasy, this is a good one to go with. I don't see very many standalone fantasies out there anymore, so I'm very, very happy about this. But I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat for most of it. The ending got very interesting very quickly, and there were some reveals that I was not prepared for, and I was shooketh to say the least. So I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know really what to say because there's not a whole lot. It's quite short, and I don't want to say too much about the plot because lots of spoilers. It's great. I really, really enjoyed it. So yes, I understand her hype when it comes to this book because I agree. I'm not sure what star rating she gave it. I couldn't find one on Goodreads, but I'm going to assume that the fact that she calls this like a super underrated favorite of hers, that she gave it at least a 4.5 to 5 star, which is pretty close to what I gave it. But this was so good. I'm a very happy human. So glad that I finally read that and loved it. And then I picked up The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon, and I am currently on chapter 5, which is 60 pages into this book, but by the end of chapter 1 I was hooked. I don't know how to explain it, except for that, like, I want to do nothing but read this book. It's fascinating, and where I am in the story, I've gotten to the point where most people in giving like a synopsis of this, they don't ever talk beyond like this point, because we follow our main character Paige. I think I kind of explained this a little bit earlier, but we follow our main character Paige, who is a clairvoyant. She's a very rare clairvoyant in a world where clairvoyancy is basically illegal and her existence is a crime. And so she works for kind of like this crime lord in like one of the sectors of the city. It's set in London. There's a glossary at the end of this book, which I did read before I went into this, so I know a little bit more of what's going on. But also at the very beginning, there's this like outline of all of the different types of clairvoyance, which first off, do you know how much planning that had to take by the author to create this alone? Like, all of these individual squares here are different types of people who have different types of clairvoyant skills, and I am just, that's just fascinating to me. Really like the writing. It's very digestible. Like, there's nothing particularly amazing about it, but it's keeping me on the edge of my seat. But yeah, something bad happens to Paige and she gets kidnapped, and she thinks she's going to like the government facility, which either means like you'll be put to death or you'll like be forced into this like human clairvoyant force. And that is not what happens. Now, I will say that the inside here definitely spoils it. I purposely didn't read it until I got to the point where we figure out where she's going, and it definitely spoils it. So if you don't want to know anything, stay away from the inside dust jacket and the Goodreads reviews, or the Goodreads synopsis. I'm sure it spoils it as well. But I am fascinated by this system, and I cannot wait to learn more. This is definitely giving me like, I don't know why, but it's giving me like Cassandra Clare, Mortal Instruments, whatever that world is called, that kind of vibe. Why? Not entirely sure, but I think if you like things like that, then you will definitely love this. And like I said, I'm only like 60 pages, like I'm barely made a dent, and I'm hooked. So, I cannot wait to continue this in the next couple of days. I'm a happy human. Hello, I am here because I have finished the Bone season. I have just talked to you about starting this in the last clip you would have seen, because I gave you zero b-roll in between, because I have done literally nothing except for read this daggum book because I am obsessed with it. So I ended up giving this 5 stars. It is fascinating. I learned later that this was actually Samantha Shannon's debut novel, if my researching skills are correct, which, first off, this is too good to be a debut. I have so many questions when it comes to that, but the world is fascinating. It is not the easiest book to get through. It is a tough world. It is a dark world. It is not, particularly a happy read, let's just say that, but I loved the kind of clairvoyant magic system of this. This is like crosses all of the genres because you've got fantastical elements, so it is kind of like a fantasy. It's set in the year 2059, so it does have some dystopian elements to it. We do have some sci-fi a little bit, but I'd say it's more fantastical and dystopian, and I loved it. I was on the edge of my seat. We had to go out and get something, and I made my husband wait the whole 6 minutes I had left in my book because I needed to know the end. So I will be continuing with this series for sure. I don't know when, but like it does wrap up. Not everything obviously is wrapped up at the end of this book because it's the first in a pretty decent sized series, but enough that I am satisfied. Ish. And like there's a romance aspect to it that I haven't decided if I ship or not, because it's not fully like Stockholm Syndrome like Beauty and the Beast, but it does have Stockholm Syndrome aspects to it. So I haven't decided if I like it or not. And the thing that I liked about it is that it just kind of is like barely in the plot. It's the very, very end. And you guys know that I love me some romances. I am down for having all of the romance. But for these 2 characters specifically, it made sense for them to only kind of like have little things here and there. And I really liked it. I liked how it went. I liked the thought process of this. The world creating is just, I still can't believe how much work she had to do to create this very intricate and like almost tough to understand world, but like I loved every second of it. So yeah, I am a very happy human that I read this. Did I tell you I gave it 5 stars? Because I gave it 5 stars. It was chef's kiss fantastic. I am glad that I did rent it from the library. I'm not sure if this is one that like I need to have on my shelves, even though I loved it, but I cannot wait to continue with this series, and if by some miracle, Ashleigh, you're watching, by God, you were right. So, with the completion of the Bone season, that's it. Those are all of the books that I had planned for this video, and considering that like 3 out of the 4 that I read were 4.5 to 5 stars, I'm gonna count this a huge win. And even the one that's not a 4.5 is still a 3.5, so like still pretty daggum good. So like, I'm very happy. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this experiment. Let me know down below if you've read any of the books that I mentioned, or if there's a booktuber that you would like to see this type of video from. Like for me, I've got many on a list that I'm planning to do in this series, so let me know if there's someone that you'd really like to see, and I'll plop them on there if they're not already. But I hope that you guys enjoyed this inaugural episode, and if you did, don't forget to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe down below if you want to be part of this awesome growing family. I've also got all my social media down there, as well as other fun bookish links, so don't forget to check all of those out, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!